Welcome back, welcome back,
Welcome
welcome
back.
back. Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the One Day Podcast. Today's episode is episode number 6,
6, yep.
and we're going to jump straight into things today, like we usually do,
Usually do.
pretty much. But we're going to be talking about things you can do or ways to strengthen your relationship, regardless of whether you are in a regular relationship or long distance like us. These are things that have really benefited us.
Yep.
Being that we are long distance, we tend to miss out on certain aspects of being
Yeah.
like in a regular relationship. Like if we were physically together is what I'm
Yep.
trying to say. So yeah, these are things that you can do regardless of what type of situation you're in, and they're definitely things that you can start incorporating like on the daily and on the regular.
I'd say so. I mean, I think, the stuff that we're going to talk about are not, I'd say not something that it's not like a quick fix kind of thing. It's something that you can do in the beginning of a relationship all the way down to like when things are, it's just like a checkpoint, like with your car, like maintenance.
Maintenance,
with your
yeah.
car, you'd always want to check it, right? To see if you have your oil, your fluids, if you have, I mean, your gas. Imagine if you're driving on E,
Right?
and you don't have like windshield wipers, and when it's raining, you're stuck. So you got to make sure you maintain your car. So in
Yes,
your
yeah.
relationships, the same thing. These are tips that we have, and things that we can talk about that we personally go through, and we went through, and we're still going through and learning from each other. That we do in the weekly, daily, yearly thing.
Yeah.
Relationship maintenance kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Maintenance in a relationship is very important.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes it is easy to get into that routine of like, okay, we've got everything together, we're in a good place, we're chilling and we're settled and we're good. But it doesn't stop there. Relationships are work. They are
Full-time.
hard work. It is a full-time
Full-time
thing, yeah.
job, yeah.
And when I say it's hard work, I don't mean it's like a struggle and it's so strenuous and difficult. I mean as in like you constantly have to put in work to your relationship, because
For sure.
there are times when you can just chill and coast along, but without that effort from both sides, 99 times out of 100, like, things can go downhill. So
Right.
that's why I think it's important to, yeah, check in with your partner, talk about certain things, and even the things that we're going to share today, like the tips that we give you guys, are things that I feel like it's important to talk to your partner about if you haven't discussed things like this before. So, yeah, should we just
Right.
get straight into like what
Yeah.
our tips are? So, the first one, and we talk about this a lot,
We do.
is expressing gratitude to one another, which is something that we are very big on in this relationship, and we try to do it as often as possible, and even down to the little things. Like, it doesn't always have to be about big things. It's even down to the tiniest of thing, like thanks for waking me up this morning, because that's just something that Alan and I do. We call each other to wake each other up, or even like thanks for spending time with me today. Just little
Yep.
things like that, I think, is very important to
Yeah.
express
I was
gratitude.
I was never really used to that before, and then when we start doing it, I'm like, wow, it feels good when you acknowledge those type of things. Like
It does.
when
Yeah.
you like little things that we said before, when you're waking up and I text you in the morning, usually my text always usually has thank you in it, because
Yeah, it
I
does.
do look back and look at the things that she have done over the years for me and for me and my daughter, and I'm like so grateful for it. Like I really look at all the little things, like down to like from like helping my daughter like study or read, and little things that it's like it goes a long way. And she's done so much, even being like even living all the way apart like this, she's done so much for me and my daughter. So
Yeah, I
having
try.
gratitude is something that we definitely practice a lot.
And I think it's important because if you think about it, even from a young age when we're kids, right? We naturally we like praise
True.
and we look for that. So even like years later as an adult and in a relationship, it is important to not rely on that, to
Mm-hmm.
rely on praise and what's the word that I'm looking for? For There's a specific word, but I can't remember what it
For
is.
me, I think you just don't want to assume things like that. They should, like, oh, she should know I'm thankful for that already. Or,
Yeah.
like little things
Mm,
like that where, well, I do this for her. She should know these things. She should, like
mm,
assumption, you definitely don't want to assume. So, like,
yeah.
acknowledging it and telling your partner, hey, I'm really thankful that you've done this. Again, little things to the big things. I'd say you
Yeah.
should definitely acknowledge it.
Yeah, even down to the daily tasks. For
Mm-hmm.
example, like, hey, thanks for doing the grocery shopping run. Thanks for washing
Mm-hmm.
the dishes. Thanks for tidying up, cleaning up, like whatever it may be. Expressing gratitude as often as possible for the little things. It's a positive and it makes your partner feel good. It makes
Mm-hmm.
them feel like they've been acknowledged for something that they've done. And yeah, I feel like for us, having gratitude to one another for the little things is something
Mm-hmm.
that has really helped to strengthen our relationship.
For sure. And one thing that, if you guys might not know, like between me and Lizelle, we both like giving. So like for us, once we get acknowledged of like saying thank you for this, it makes me, like, for me personally, it makes me want to do more for the other person. So when
Mm,
they say thank you to you and they say, they appreciate what you've done and what you do and all that stuff, it makes me want to do more for them. So
yeah. And of course, like naturally, we should do things without expecting anything in return,
for
even if that
sure.
is a thank you. But if you're both like bouncing back and forth to each other, like expressing gratitude with one another, sorry, yeah, it's always going to be a good thing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why, yeah, we always preach that a lot over here about having gratitude. Like it's important to have gratitude. And yeah, I would say for the first tip, that would definitely be one is
Yeah.
to express gratitude as often as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd say the second one, I'd
Mm.
say I use a lot because
Mm-hmm.
me personally, I know I'm not perfect. So like the second one is admitting that you're wrong. And a lot of
Yeah.
times we're so prideful, we're so like our ego get in the way where we just think that, what, even if you're wrong, you just don't want to admit it. But I mean, obviously, I think everyone has put themselves in that position where they don't want to admit things, but it's actually okay to say, you did wrong, or as long as you know you're going to fix it, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, I messed up or I did this. Like for me, I was clumsy growing up. That's like something I was labeled at growing up. So for me, it affected me as an adult. So now it's more like I know I'm not the most perfect person, and I know I'm gonna mess up. So it's easy for me to accept, like, hey, you know what? I know I didn't do that right, or I didn't say that right, but this is what I meant, or this is how I'll fix it.
Yeah, like having
Hmm.
that clarification of like, okay, I apologize, I was wrong in this situation, but here's what I'm going to do to
Right.
improve, or here's what I'm
Hmm.
going to do to fix it. Because, yeah, like you said, naturally, a lot of people let their pride and their ego get into the
Hmm.
way. And we don't want to admit that we're wrong. We don't want to
Right.
say that we're sorry for doing something wrong, even if we know that it's wrong.
Right.
But it is very important, and especially like in a relationship, like you should be in a relationship where it is okay to be wrong and it is okay
Hmm.
to apologize and acknowledge like, hey babe, like I'm sorry, I was wrong in that sense, I
Hmm.
apologize, without the fear of your partner like condemning you and being like, yeah, I told you so, like I knew, like,
Exactly.
do you know what I mean? Because
Right.
yeah, that's naturally where things get a little bit too defensive. So
Yep.
that's why I think, yeah, like you said, it's important to be able to let go of your pride, let go of your ego,
Hmm.
and admit when you are wrong, because you have that understanding, that mutual understanding between the two of you,
Hmm.
that you're not here to judge, you're not
Yeah.
here to condemn, and you're not like
Hmm.
going to put each other down for that. Like it's
For sure.
okay to be wrong. Yeah.
Right.
So I think, yeah, it is important to admit when you are wrong and to not hold your pride so high and have such a big ego in that sense.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I think in return, like you said, as long as once you admit that, as a partner. You can't be like, see, this is what you did. You know,
Yeah.
you can't point it out and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and just concentrate on that. You have to be able to learn from what the mistakes you guys have done. Because I know it might happen again, and we're all not perfect. So it's going to
Yeah.
happen again. And as long as you know that you did wrong and you know your intentions is to fix it,
Mm.
that's all that matters is, hey, how can we make this better? How can we fix things? So,
Yeah, for sure. That's it. It's like a, like I said, like a mutual understanding of like
hmm
if one person apologizes, then the other person can acknowledge that, and then the two of you can work together to
right.
improve the situation. So, yeah. All right. So, one thing that I think is very important is to take some time for yourself as well.
hmm
Learn how to have some alone time.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like that you're alone all the time. Of course, you're in a relationship. It's important to be with your partner, but I feel like it is important to, how do I put this? Like take some alone time and be okay with being alone, because that keeps
hmm
you grounded, that keeps you centered. And it's also not to say that you don't rely on your partner and you don't ever expect them to be there for you. But I
hmm
mean, as in, like, okay, in this relationship, right? Us being long distance, of course, I mean, I would want more than anything to be with you,
Yeah.
or you to be with me, whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, we go to bed on our own.
Right.
And because of our time differences, being that we are on the opposite sides of the world, there's like a 14 to 15 hour time difference. We're always on the opposite times of the day. So
hmm
naturally, we do have a window of time where we are alone, because we're very lucky in this situation that we're able to talk to each other whenever we want. But when we go to bed, that's typically like when the other one has their alone time and vice versa.
Right.
But yeah, I mentioned this in the last episode, and I said it is important to be able to have alone time for yourself, because as much love as you give to your partner, you should be giving that love to yourself as well.
Right.
Right? Self love is very important,
hmm
because if we don't love ourselves, how can we let anybody in to love us truly?
Right.
So, yeah, I think it's important to take some time for yourself to do your own thing. I mean, for us, it's kind of easy because
Yeah, it is.
we're long distance. But for example, if we lived together, it could even be that, you know, if I woke up early and I wanted to go for a walk by myself,
Right.
or if I wanted to hit up the mall by myself, or if I wanted to go out for lunch by myself, and that's, I mean, to be honest, I probably want you to come to lunch with me.
I'm
but
sure. Even
but
when
I'm
you
just,
walk in the morning, I'm gonna go with you.
right now you're gonna be like, where you going? I'm coming
Wait,
with
where
you.
you going? I'm lacing up my sneakers. Let's go.
Yeah, but I mean, as in like just those pockets of, what is
I'm
it?
thinking if they're like in the can and you're just in the bathroom,
What are you
I'm like,
doing?
that's your number, your alone time. I'm like, well, you could gather your thoughts and,
Oh my
just,
gosh.
yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, what I was saying was, I mean, is in like those, and I don't mean like, you know, every week you need a whole day's like blocked out for yourself, or like you need regular weekends away by yourself type thing.
hmm
Like, I mean, as in like, even in your days to go just do something by yourself, or even like
hmm
if you were working and then I'm in the other room doing something, or
Right.
if I'm filming a video and you're doing something else, like,
Exactly.
do you know what I mean? Just the time to like be alone and do your own thing.
Yeah,
It gives you time to miss each other as well.
for sure.
Like that old saying goes, absence makes the heart grow fonder. I
hmm
mean, my heart is very fond of you, being very a long
Being
distance.
this far apart, yeah, and it's been so long.
Right. But yeah, in terms of like if you live together, you said this before, you become comfortable and you get jaded.
You get jaded. Yep.
Yeah. So it is important to have some alone time, both
Yeah.
of you, here and there. And like I said, I don't mean like a whole entire day, but
Yeah.
even if it's just like moments throughout the day, like I go out, run some errands, and I come back
hmm
home, or you go out and go to the gym or something and come back home, like
Exactly.
things like that, you know. So it
Right.
gives us time to miss each other. I think
hmm
that's important. Yeah.
Well, for me, since the way we've been apart for this long and even
Hmm.
before, what I find really well like on my alone time is
Mm-hmm.
I get really creative. Like even today, I had so many. When you were sleeping, I
Mm-hmm.
had just conduct my daily business, and
Mm-hmm.
I was. That's the time where I get really creative. Like when I find out, oh, and then once she wakes up, I'm so excited to talk to her
Oh my
and tell her how
gosh,
my
yeah.
day goes, and tell her, hey, this is what I thought about. Like this is the
Yeah.
next thing I want to do, and for some reason, I always find myself just having my own thoughts and having my like just again gauging where you're at in life. Sometimes like I reflect a lot of times when I'm alone and say, hey, where am I, what can I do to improve, and what
Mm.
can I do that I'm lacking, or what I'm doing right. So like for me, I literally I self reflect a lot
Yeah.
in my alone time. Like, okay, so how can I improve this, or how can I get better as a person, as a father, as a partner. I always look at like I always try to stay creative and reflect all the time in my alone time, and it's really important.
Yeah, I think that's how I spend my alone time as
Mm-hmm.
well. Is like I will journal, I'll meditate,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll do again, like you said, a lot of self-reflection. That's how I like to spend my alone time. So, yeah, even something as simple as that, like if we live together, like we don't have to be holding hands sitting on the
You don't
ground
need to
meditating together.
stay
Like
on
I can
top of
go,
each other all the time.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's
Yeah,
why I think it is important to learn how to
yeah.
have alone time and to give each other not necessarily, I don't mean like space, like you don't. It's like
You
being able to miss each other
right.
a little. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a point where once we live together, it's again, you do your own thing and you have your channel. Maybe I want to play ball outside or do something, and I'll come back and, tell you all about it. And I know when we get together, again, we have a lot of chemistry, and you tell me how it went, and I like helping you anyways, too. So
Mm,
it's just so much better when we get back together. We have things that to talk about. Like you said, we get to miss each other, and it's really
yeah.
important.
Yeah, definitely.
So the next one
Mm,
is actually number 4 is don't use the past as a weapon. And I'd say it's
mm,
really important to not do this because this is
yes.
where, in a relationship, when you hold on to things, that old feelings that you had, if the other person messed up or didn't do, they just did something wrong. If you keep pointing that out and you're not empowering them to do better, that person's always going to feel bad. So if you use that against them,
Yeah.
all the stuff that they've done in the past, it's like it's not moving forward in a relationship. It's setting you guys back.
Yeah, definitely. When you hold on to that feeling
Mm-hmm.
which turns into like a grudge or animosity towards that
Yep.
person, 9 times out of 10 it's going to hurt you more
Yep.
than it's going to hurt the other person. if
Mm-hmm.
if for example, I don't know, if I was on you for like, babe, you never washed the dishes, I don't know, I'm just thinking of like something like random, and
Mm-hmm.
if we sat down and discussed it, and you're like, okay baby, like I'm going to work harder to make sure that
I
I wash
will
the dishes.
exactly.
If, for example, the one time where you leave a dirty dish in the sink and I'm like, oh my gosh, like you told me you were gonna do this, and that's me holding on because we've already
Yeah.
had that
Like
discussion.
you
And
always
it,
done that. You always do this. When you
mm,
start saying when your sentence starts with "you always do this,"
yeah, you
it's never
always,
good.
mm,
It's
if it's
never
like,
good.
if it's like you always or you never,
You never
oh,
exactly.
mm.
It's a wrap.
Yeah, so yeah, holding on to the past, usually it's something that is manifesting within you
Yeah.
that's hurting you because you're holding on to it, right?
Right.
There's
Mm-hmm.
a saying, there's like an old Buddhist saying talking about how like holding on to anger or grudges is like throwing a hot coal at somebody else and
Mm-hmm.
expecting to hurt them, but you're the one that's holding on to that hot coal in the beginning. So you're
Right.
getting burnt.
Right.
So yeah, holding on to things in the past. And I know sometimes it's difficult. Like you guys might go through situations that may occur where letting go of things is hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always easy, but working together to keep each other accountable and to be like, hey, we've discussed this before. Let's stay more in the mindset of empowerment, of
Mm-hmm.
encouragement, of like positivity, as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to focusing on the negative thing that occurred, or like you always do this or you never do this, like I feel like is very important. So that's why, yeah, like you said, don't bring up the part, like, don't use the past as a weapon.
Right.
I mean, you could bring it up if you wanted to discuss things.
Yeah, but if it turns into an argument and you're like opening like old wounds,
Mm,
like again, usually I use that band-aid metaphor with you all the time. Like
yeah.
once you put that band-aid, you leave it alone. You don't like try to scratch it, and every time you check it, to see if it's still gonna hurt. You
Yeah.
gotta let it heal, and once it
Mm,
heals, you rip off the band-aid and you move on.
mm.
You don't look back at that scar and be like, oh, remember this? Remember, it still hurts. Like
Yeah.
you just hold on to that feeling, and it's not good.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, yeah, if you use it in a weapon, the other person's not going to feel good. They're going to feel like they're always like the bad person, or
Mm-hmm.
like damn, I messed up and that's all that I'm
Mm-hmm.
known for, is like if the other person is doing
Yep.
their best to improve,
Right.
but you're still like throwing it in their face like, "Oh, you always do this, you never do this." Like,
Mm-hmm.
but they're over here like, "But I'm trying my best to improve."
Right.
Like, they're not going to feel, like I said, encouraged, empowered,
Mm-hmm.
and like positive about the situation. So, yeah, it is important to not use the past as a weapon for sure.
Yeah, you're to me, you're labeling them, right? Like
Mm,
of course no one's perfect, but when someone messes up in the past, you can't just label them and point that out, because like every time you look at them, that's all you're going to think about. That's not a good thing. You're going to always look at them. I say this to you all the time too. Look at your partner or anyone as who they would want to be, not who they were.
true.
And you
Yeah.
looking at them, who can hit their potential and who they want to be, is something that
Yeah.
they're striving for, and you can
Yeah.
empower that and look and encourage that, because if they want to be better, it's not going to help when you just keep bringing the past and all the wrong things they've done in the past. You
True.
can't move
Yeah.
on from it. You can't.
Mm,
You're putting them down and say, hey, you used to be like that, or you never do this. I'm like, well, yeah, like you said, if they're trying to improve and try to be better, how can they feel good about trying to improve and being better if you keep bringing the past around?
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
Can't
for
move
sure.
on. It's hard.
Yeah, so if you guys have discussed whatever issue it may be,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's important, yeah, to switch the mindset of like holding on to that and bringing it up and using it as a weapon, switch that out for encouraging them and empowering them and being like, "Hey, I can see
Mm-hmm.
you're trying to do this better. Thank you." Or I appreciate you
Mm-hmm.
doing this, or just ways to encourage like positivity and like motivate them and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Yeah, I think is a way that you could kind of flip that script and kind of go about it in a different way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because like
Mm-hmm.
obviously in that sense, if you're encouraging them and saying like, "Oh, thank you for doing this. I appreciate that you're trying to improve this." You are still bringing up the past because you're like kind of comparing
Mm-hmm.
and like and showing that you see their improvement, you're acknowledging their
Exactly.
improvement, as opposed to being like, "Oh, you always do this," or
Mm-hmm.
you never do this," or "You used to do this." It's like switching that
Yeah,
for acknowledging that they're actually working on it.
you're right.
Yeah.
Imagine like someone is like trying to lose weight, right?
Mm.
And all you could talk about is like, oh, you eat this, you eat that, you don't move, you don't work out, you don't do anything.
Yeah.
But like if you tell them and acknowledge, oh wow, you lost a pound or two, you know how good they're gonna feel about that. It's gonna
Yeah.
encourage them to lose more weight and lose.
Definitely.
Their self esteem is through the roof after you tell them, when you encourage them and tell them, hey, these are the positive things you're doing. Because
Hmm.
yeah, you were doing that before, but you don't have to bring that up anymore. You can say, hey, I know you're doing your best on eating better, working out, and I see the improvement even in your attitude. So the little things, it helps a long way when you point out all the positive things that you're doing.
Yeah, it's like a boost of
Mm-hmm.
motivation, which is going to encourage them to continue
Right.
climbing upwards in that progress, as opposed to being like, well, damn, they just think of me as like this, so
Mm-hmm.
I'll just keep doing that anyway. Like,
Exactly.
yeah, so
And
that's very important.
another thing too is, I know we do this, is you have to have some kind of agreements with your partner. Like
Mm,
you said, if you said, hey, I know you left the dishes, so what can we do next time? You say, okay, so next time you have an agreement. You say, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then you ask them like, hey, you can keep me accountable. then they're not going to feel bad if you bring it up again,
Yeah,
right?
because you can't have that conversation. So funny, we're
Yeah,
talking about dishes.
dishes, right?
But you can't have that conversation and be like, okay, baby, like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna wash the dishes.
Right.
Guaranteed 100%. I will work on that. I'll wash the
Mm-hmm.
dishes. And then you walk past the kitchen, you're like, she didn't wash the dishes. And then you blow up and go off.
Mm-hmm.
You come to me with some type of like attitude
Mm-hmm.
or negativity straight off the bat. That's not going to make me feel like I am wanting to work on it more, because it's like, damn, he didn't even give me a chance. Like, if
Yeah.
you came to me first and were like, hey, baby, I noticed that the dishes haven't been done. Are you like, are you good? Like,
Yeah, I'll be like, oh, my bad. I'll do it right now. I'll remember next time to do it right after, you know? I
yeah.
mean, perfect example. Another example I have is when we used to like leave the house and I told you like, hey, I'm going to text you so you know where I'm going to be for, for
Yes, that's a good
safety.
example.
And
Yeah.
I'd say for me, it took so long. And again, I'm not perfect. It's going to take me, like, for me, I've been alone for so long where I'm just used to just leaving the house and not really checking in with anybody. So
Mm,
living like that for a long time, and now it's like, okay, well, I want to make sure she knows where I'm going so that if anything happens, you know, she knows where I'm going to be.
mm.
And for a while, it's more like, hey, you forgot to text me again. She would wake up and she's like, hey, I didn't get a text. You're like out. And I'm like, yeah, I totally forgot, or I just got out of the house. But we had agreements and saying, hey, you know what? I'm gonna improve this. I mean, it's gonna be better. It took some time, but at least we have some agreements. I just told her like, point it out. I don't care. Meaning like, I don't have the ego to like, I don't care if you just tell me again. I'll remember and I'll do my best next time. And that's what we've done in the past is just get better.
Yeah, and I think what I love about like our relationship is that we are more so in that sense of like, okay, I'll improve that. Just hold me accountable
Yeah.
if I don't
Mm-hmm.
do that. Or it's not like, okay, babe, I'm gonna go work on it, and then it's like if you don't do something, you immediately come down on them and you get mad at them or
Yeah.
whatever. It's just like we've made it a point to just like point it out and be like, hey, you forgot to do this, or like, hey,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't do this, just letting you know.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's more positive to
Right.
do it in that sense, to say like, hey, just letting you know, like, you forgot to do this, and the other person will be like, oh, okay, my bad, rather than being like straight into it, coming in with an attitude like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
god, you said you were going to do this and you didn't do it. So that's a better way to come at it in that sense.
Yeah. So don't use the past as a weapon.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That was the whole point at this point. But moving on, I think one thing that I really love and has really, really strengthened our relationship is having mutual goals to work on together.
Yeah.
Because, like, for example, this podcast, this
Mm-hmm.
is like something that we get to work on together, and I feel like it definitely brings us closer together. And we have other things that we're working on in the background that when we work on them together, I know for me, it definitely makes me feel closer to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are times, like, I'm not going to lie, where you'll be doing your thing, I'll be doing my thing, and we don't really, we're so busy and focused on those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we come together, I'm like, babe, I miss you. I feel like we haven't really, like,
Right.
done something together. So, like, having a mutual goal to work on together makes, for me personally, I feel like it makes me feel very connected to you,
Right.
like we're on the same path and we're aligned.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I really enjoy that. And that could even be something as simple as like working out together,
Yeah.
going to the gym
Honestly,
together.
yeah, those are the best ones. Like
Mm.
again, doing it alone to me sucks. I probably wouldn't want to do it. So like having her encouraging me or like saying, "Hey, I'm ready. Let's go. Let's work
Mm.
out." It just like me doing things with her is fun for me. Like you said, I find a joy on that because like doing it alone sucks. I love doing things with you, and I love doing like whether like you said it's working out or doing something creative. Again,
Mm.
I've probably never been with anyone as creative as Lizelle, and it's fun for me because now I could express my creativity, whether if it's digital or photo or in fashion. I could
Yeah.
always show you, and you're like you get excited the way I am with it, or even like as little as like little listen to music. You know, we get
Yeah.
excited about stuff like that.
Yeah, and I love it, like, because we're both very creative in that sense.
Hmm.
When I get an idea and I throw it to you and you bounce back off with something in
Right.
return, and we just like go back and forth with ideas, or
Hmm.
vice versa. If you show me like something that you've had to do for work and I'm like, "Oh, that looks cool," or you should add this or change this or
Hmm.
whatever, like I like that. Like it's just yeah, being able to share something that is like a mutual goal for each other, even down to like I said, going to the gym, exercising. But
Hmm.
even if you guys want to do like a lifestyle change in terms of eating, like if you're like, you know
Yeah.
what, let's keep each other accountable for eating healthier.
Hmm.
I feel like yeah, that's something that brings you closer together as well because it's a mutual goal to
Right.
work on.
Those things, and I would say, like we always said, communication, right? Like as little as
Mm.
communication, those are things that you both can work on as well.
Yeah.
You can never say, "Oh, we're the best communicator ever." Like that's never gonna happen, you know. So
Mm.
those are the things that, as a couple, you always need you would like to improve on. Because
Yeah.
I know for sure I would think of something, and you could always assume things like, "Oh, I hope she should know I think that way, or she should know," you know. But if you
Mm.
don't know how to properly communicate that, like, "Oh, I don't like how she said this. I'd like for her to talk and tell me this way." Like little things that you guys can work on, as simple as communication helps, and those are the things that you guys can work on together.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that comes to mind for me is something that we do regularly is sitting down and writing down our goals.
Hmm. Right.
So Alan and I like to sit down at the beginning of every year and
Mm-hmm.
we write down what our goals are for the
Yeah.
year in terms of personal goals, relationship, health, career,
Financial,
and
career.
financial.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, those are things like for ourselves, but in terms
Mm-hmm.
of like the relationship category, those are things that are for the two of us to work on together that we want
Right.
to improve or that we want to achieve. So, I think sitting down with your partner and really talking about your goals with one another, whether it be individually and together, I think that will help as well.
For
Or
sure.
even remember when we sat down and we wrote down like our 5 year goal of like what our
Yeah.
plan is? Like that's something that you subconsciously work on every day. It's not
Mm-hmm.
something that you achieve like overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're not all mind readers. Like we can't,
Yeah.
like if you guys don't know how your partner feels, then you might be going in one direction and you think that you guys are walking together, but they all along she's like thinking about going this way and you're going this way. So if you just sit down and say these are our goals together as a couple, and then personal goals, at least
Hmm.
your partner could say, or they can see where you're at and they can help you on, or encourage you and also keep you accountable. Like, hey, you said you were going to do this, you know?
Yeah.
So it helps out so much when you have a goal. And plus, again, if you have a bow and arrow and you don't have a target, it's so hard to like hit anything. So
Mm.
you have to make sure your partner knows where your target is, and as a couple and as a personal goal, so that you guys can help each other, encourage each other.
Yeah, definitely. I think
Yeah.
it is really important to, yeah, have goals to work towards because I think that's what life is about, to be
Mm-hmm.
honest. Because if we're just sitting here like wondering like okay what am I doing today, what am I doing next, like I
Mm-hmm.
know for me personally I'm a very like I like to plan things, I'm a planner.
Yeah.
So I personally always like to have a goal in mind. I
Yeah.
like to have goals to work towards, whether that be like 5 yearly, monthly, daily. Like I
Yeah.
always like to have like
Mm-hmm.
an idea of like what direction I am headed in. And I feel like yeah, as a relationship, as a partnership, as a team, like you said, to know like to check in with each other and to know like okay,
Mm-hmm.
are we still on the same path? Because yes, you might have sat down and had that conversation in the beginning of your relationship. You guys want to be together, but I think it is still important to check in with things and see like, okay, is this something that you still want, or is there something more that you want, or
Right.
is there some? Do you want to go in a different direction, or are we
Mm-hmm.
still going in the same direction? Like, these are things that need to be spoken about. Like, I don't know, even in regards of like kids. Like, if in the beginning I was like, I don't want kids, and then you're like, okay, no kids, don't
Right.
want kids. But then if later on I was like, actually, I do want kids, and
Right.
we didn't talk about it, and you're like, but I thought you said you didn't want kids.
Right.
And that's why I think it's important to check in and see where each other is at, like on the regular,
Yeah.
in terms of like what path you're on, whether you're still on the same
Mm-hmm.
path, whether you're still going in the same direction. Because
Yeah.
as a team, as a partnership, I think that's really important.
Yeah. I think underlying theme of this too is just maintenance, like relationship
Definitely.
maintenance.
Yeah.
You guys just have to keep each other accountable and see where you guys are at the moment and see what you
Yeah.
guys are either not communicating, not doing right, or what you guys are doing right and do more of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so really just maintenance.
Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Because it's not like, okay, I've done that, so that's checked off, like we're good.
Right.
No, you still got to keep doing it. Like
Yeah.
we said, relationships are work,
Hmm.
and it doesn't mean like, okay, we've reached that checkpoint.
Right.
Doesn't mean you're never going to have to come back around to it, because
Hmm.
sometimes you may have to go through certain checkpoints over and over again to resolve
Right.
issues or to level up or to evolve and grow. So that's why I think, yeah, it is important to know that relationships are work,
Yeah.
maintenance is required, just like anything else. Your health, your
Yeah.
teeth,
Your
your
teeth.
your
Yeah.
body, like you know what I
Right.
mean? Like
For
it's
sure.
yeah, like your house, your car, like everything requires maintenance, and relationships are definitely a big one that
Right.
require maintenance. Yeah.
Hmm.
So next point that we're going to talk about.
I'd say the next point is to validate each other's feelings.
Mm,
That's really important to do. Because
yeah.
sometimes, again, if you don't validate each other's feelings,
Mm.
you're not. I don't know how to explain it.
So for example, you mean as in like what's an example we can put to this? Like if I was telling you that something you were doing was upsetting me, and then you were to tell me like, no, like what is there to be upset about? That's nothing to be upset about.
Mm,
In your mind, you see it as something to not be upset about, but
right.
from my perspective, that is something to be upset about. And I feel like that's where what they call gaslighting occurs,
Hmm.
where one partner is not trying to view things at each other's perspectives,
Right.
and they're only seeing things as like, well, there's nothing to be upset about with that,
Hmm.
rather than being like, okay, I understand that you're upset about it, this is
Hmm.
the way that I see it, but it's okay to be upset about it, but this is what we're going to do to improve it.
Right.
It's not about just completely dismissing your partner and saying like, no, like what do you have to be upset about that for? Because the way that that person feels is how they feel. We're not all the same.
Yep.
Everybody is different. Everybody has different emotions, different feelings, different reactions to things. So I think what you're trying to say is like, yeah, it's important to view things from multiple perspectives and not just your own.
Right.
Because if you're just seeing it as like through one lens and you think to yourself like,
Hmm.
what are they talking about? Like there's nothing to trip over. Like why are they upset? But that's for you, like you're not upset about it because that's how you view it. But if the
Exactly.
partner is like, but this is something that affects me, this is something that gets me emotional. So I think, yeah, it's important to tell your partner like, okay, I understand, rather
Hmm.
than telling them like, no, like what are you talking about? There's nothing to
Exactly.
be upset about. You're crazy, you're imagining things. I don't know. That's like gaslighting, is
Yeah.
to not validate feelings, because that's not helping to diffuse the situation or
Right.
to even help the situation. That's adding fuel to the fire. So
Right.
validating partners' feelings is very, very important.
I agree. I mean, again, you're not gonna see eye to eye all the time.
Yeah.
And your feelings is your feelings, and your partner's
Hmm.
feelings is their feelings. So,
Yeah.
you're not. They might feel a certain way at one point, and you might not think so. But if you don't validate that, they're just you're gonna make them feel small. Like you should just get over it. Like stuff like
Yeah.
that. So you
Mm.
need to like learn like, hey, that's their feelings. You can acknowledge it. You know that it's gonna be different from how you feel, and it's
Yeah.
okay. You have to be okay with feeling two different ways because you guys are not, like you said, they're not the same person. But if you acknowledge and say, hey, this is how you feel, I get it. What can I do, or what can we do to
Mm.
improve that feeling or to improve the situation? End of the day, it's just solution and what you would want to do as a couple, to
Yeah,
get
for
away
sure.
from that emotion.
Hmm. And I definitely feel like it has to come from both perspectives as well. So,
Right.
for example, the person who's upset needs to acknowledge and be like, okay, so I'm upset, and the other person thinks that there's nothing to be upset about. And that's okay to have
Mm-hmm.
two different views on a situation, but how can we come together as a team to improve this?
Right.
Because it's not, for me personally, I don't think it's just all about the person who's like, we're only using this as an example, but it's not just all about the person who's not upset to have to do the work to fix something. Does that make
Right.
sense? So it's
Mm-hmm.
important for the person who might be emotional, upset, or affected by something to acknowledge that, okay, this person feels differently to me. Why is this? What can we do to improve this? Where can we go from here? It's not just about like,
Right.
I'm upset. This person needs to cater to me. They need to acknowledge me, because I feel like the validation of feelings, whether it be that you're happy, upset, angry, sad, whatever it is, has to come from both sides, not
Right.
just the person who's not upset to be like, I validate you. It's like,
Yeah.
does that make sense? Like, it has to come from different
It takes two to
perspectives.
tango. You
Yeah.
know, it takes you both have to work on it so that the other person, you know, the other person's not they're not going to feel the way you do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to be there for them and help them get out of that situation or their feeling so that it can improve and get better. So you
Yeah.
need to just validate it, say, "Hey, I understand that's how you feel at the moment. Okay, so this is how I look at it.
Yeah.
What can we do?" And
It
from
is.
there you
It
can move on.
is
There's a
for
game
sure.
plan and you can just get better and feel better.
It is about discussing things.
Right.
Both of you have to come out of those feelings and those emotions and come together to be like, okay, how can we work together to improve this? How can we rise above this?
Yeah.
It's just not about like one person catering to the other. It is a team effort, it's a partnership. So that is important, validating each other's feelings. I think what kind of goes hand in hand with that is the next point, which is to share your heart and your feelings in a more
Yeah.
vulnerable way,
Right.
which for us, I think I naturally do that because I like to talk about my feelings and I like to have deep conversations, but
Right.
you coming into this, you naturally weren't
For
that kind of
sure.
person.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
definitely when we started the relationship, when we were getting to know each other, it was very weird and uncomfortable to know, like, for someone to ask you how you feel. And I was
Mm.
never comfortable just because it's something I didn't grow up like experiencing and people asking me like genuinely how I felt.
Mm.
So it's like when you started asking me that in the beginning, it just really was weird for me and
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And
Yeah.
as we go along, it helped a lot because you know exactly where I'm coming from most of the time now. Is nothing. I try not to like hide my emotions because
Mm.
if I'm saying, hey, if I'm happy or I'm sad or I'm mad or I'm upset with like certain things, now it's a lot easier to express it and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, because you can't hold that in. You know, if you hold it in, if you just sweep things under the rug, that's going to be a big pile of like dirt under that rug eventually, and it's just going to be a
Mm-hmm.
blow up.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, I like to express it. I like to share it and tell you how exactly how I feel, because guess what? It's only temporary, right? I always tell you this. It's always going to be just for that moment, and I'm
Yeah.
telling you at that moment to get it out and to
Mm.
like just get over what I'm going. This is what I'm doing. This is how I'm feeling
Mm-hmm.
at the moment, and this is what I'm going to do about it. So then there's like a plan of action there instead of just saying, oh, I feel like this and I'm complaining about that. You know, it's never
Yeah.
good when you're just like complaining, and it's different about complaining and being vulnerable and telling your partner how you feel,
Yeah,
right?
that's for sure. Yeah.
Complaining is there's no solution. You're just
Mm.
complaining to complain.
Yeah,
You know, being
that's
vulnerable and
venting.
exactly, you're just venting, but there's really no solution there.
Mm.
You know, but when you're being vulnerable, you just you just so an open book, and it's so much
Mm.
easier now to just open up to you with anything.
Mm. Yeah, so like you were saying, like in the beginning, it was difficult for you
Hmm.
to share your feelings. And he doesn't mean just like how he felt about me. I'm not talking about like,
Yeah.
it's not like I was over here like, oh my God, tell me how you feel about me. It was more so he means as in like, even when I would ask you if something happened to you, like you were going through a
Yeah.
situation, if I would ask like, okay, so how does that make you feel? you're
Right.
like, what? Like, I don't know.
Right.
Like, you weren't used
Yeah.
to sharing your feelings. And I think for me personally, yeah, I grew up in an environment as well where you don't share your
Mm-hmm.
feelings. You don't really talk about your feelings. That wasn't something that was really done in my home. If
Yep.
something affected you, you just keep that to yourself because we don't
Right.
talk about that. But I think
Mm-hmm.
the way that I learned about what the importance of sharing feelings is like through therapy. When I went to therapy sessions, is that
Right.
it is really important to get your feelings out there and also to acknowledge them for yourself. Because a
Right.
lot of the time, when we don't talk about our feelings, whether it be to someone else or even to ourselves, I know I've done this many years ago where I wanted to suppress certain emotions or certain feelings about things because it was just easier that way as opposed to facing them and talking about
Right.
them or doing something about them. And then what happens later on? Those emotions and those feelings haven't been properly dealt with and they come back up.
Right.
They've been held on to with animosity or as a
Yep.
grudge. So that's why, yeah, it's important to be open, talk about how you feel about certain things, whether it be something that makes you happy, that makes you sad, angry, whatever emotion it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not just talking about like venting about negative things. Like, we even like to talk to each other about like what makes us really happy in this
Right.
relationship. It's not just
Yeah.
like, hey, this is something that's happening that's stressing me out. This is something that's making me feel down. We also talk about like what's good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I feel like it is very important because, like I was saying, acknowledging it not only to tell your partner, but also for yourself to
Mm-hmm.
know, like, okay, this is something that I'm dealing with, and this is something I need to improve. This is something I need to work on. And in that sense, it also allows your partner to help you grow and also hold you accountable for
Right.
certain things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I know I've been in relationships before where I didn't want to share my feelings because it would bring up arguments
Mm. Right.
or issues, and it's like, okay, let me just like, this is something that I don't like or this is something that's affecting me, but let me just keep it to myself because I don't want to start no drama.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are in a loving relationship where you're able to come to your partner without any judgments, without any feelings of like, oh, this is going to start something, I
Mm-hmm.
feel like it is very important to bring up things. And
Right.
you should be in a relationship where you feel safe enough in that space to be able to come to your partner and be like, hey, can I talk about this? This is how I feel about this. This
Right.
is what I like. This is what I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, like you said, if you just sweep that stuff under the rug's going to get bigger. And then eventually you're going to have to pick it up and clean everything up. And there's going to be
Mm-hmm.
just a lot of stuff under there
Just
that's
messy.
accumulated.
Start really
Yeah,
messy. It's gonna get
exactly.
messy.
Yeah.
I'd say the next topic and the next suggestion and tip that we have is
Mm.
make sure you take turns on being a leader. You
Yes.
know, and that's something that I know we do really well. You
Mm.
know, I think ever since the beginning.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, naturally, two people coming together, you aren't going to be the same. You
Mm-hmm.
have different strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah.
And something that you've always said to me is like, whenever we're carrying out tasks together or things that we need to do, you always tell me, like, hey, this is what you're good at. I'm going to let you lead because I
Mm-hmm.
know that's what you're good at.
Right.
For example, what's an example I can throw out there? Like planning for trips
Yeah.
because I'm the planner.
Yeah. I mean,
You would tell
obviously
me
for
like,
that I can do it, but if I
yeah,
want it to be very meticulous and detailed, she's very resourceful. So like, you know what? I'll leave it up to her. She'll give me like plan A, B, C. This is where we're gonna go. Then
mm,
we can decide from there, and vice versa for like little things, right? Like
mm-hmm,
date night, right? Like
mm-hmm,
I say, hey, you know what? There's about three, four, five movies I saw that we'd like to do. I'll
mm-hmm.
take the lead on that, and let's see.
Yeah,
And then you go, and we'll pick which one.
yeah, and I feel like it is important to take turns and to also talk about like what your strengths and weaknesses are
Right.
because yeah, if one person feels like they're always leading,
Mm-hmm.
then that's not really equal. And I feel like in a
Right.
relationship, it should be an equal partnership. Like I don't think it should be like, oh, the man wears the pants and the woman
Right.
has to obey and the like I feel like if you're good at something, you can take over that task. If I'm good
Mm-hmm.
at something, I can take over that. Or if we're both good at it, we can do it together. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. So,
Right.
yeah, giving each other the time and space to be the leader, I feel like is important
For
because,
sure.
yeah, it also, what's the words I'm looking for? It also encourages that you trust your partner with certain
True.
things, and
Very
it
true.
empowers them in that sense because they're like, okay, my
Yep.
partner trusts me enough to take care of this. He
Yep.
believes in me. He acknowledges that this is something I'm good at, and of course that's going to make you feel good. If he
Right.
was always on you like, "Oh, you don't know how to do that. I'll do it. Oh, you don't know how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take care of that. Or just let me do it." That's not gonna make you feel good.
For me, again, it's what I learned from it is the things that I do that is not as good as well as you is I get to improve it too. Like
Yeah.
I'm not good at planning, like you said, you're way better at it, right? Well, for me, it's baby steps. Like okay, well, she's good at that. I learn from the stuff that you do really well, and I
True.
pick it
Yeah.
up
Mm.
and try to improve it in my life. Like I wasn't the best planner, but ever since yeah, ever since we got together and we've been planning together, it's easy for me to step back and when you're like when I'm alone, I can easily plan my thoughts, my schedule, my whole day. I could plan
Mm-hmm.
out my week better now because we've done it together and I see you do it. So you're
Yeah.
either inspired by it or you guys do it together. To
Yeah.
me, my quality of life is so much better knowing that I can, you know, that you've impacted where it's really I was influenced by it.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and that is exactly what I love about relationships and two people coming together is that, you both typically have two different upbringings, two different
Mm-hmm.
outlooks, two different lifestyle
Skill
situations.
sets, yeah,
Exactly. So then when you come together, like, okay, I love learning something from my partner.
for
And if we come
sure.
together and you're able to teach me things, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, man. Like,
Exactly.
I just love it. I love being taught stuff. I feel like it
Right.
helps me grow, it helps me evolve, it helps me
Yeah.
level up, helps me to become a better person.
Right.
And I love that about relationships is like when two people come together and they're able to help each other grow and evolve to become the
Yeah.
best versions of themselves. Damn, like I just love that. You can hear how
Mm-hmm.
passionate I am about that
Yeah.
because, yeah, I think it's important. Like, self growth can be done obviously by yourself, but it can
Mm-hmm.
also come from your partner as well. The two of you
Right.
helping each other to
For
become
sure.
better. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like
Yeah.
before, I mean, last year again, I'm gonna go back to this again. I've never really cooked. You know, like Lizelle would give me now. She'll give me a recipe, or she'll look up something for me to cook, and now I have the confidence because when the last time we were together, she helped me cook a Filipino dish, and I was
Hmm.
like, wow, I didn't know I could do this. And she put a battery on my back. Now I have the confidence to pretty much cook anything. You know, anything, any recipe she'll give me. Obviously you can just YouTube it or Google how to do it
Mm.
and now I have the confidence to doing that. And there's a lot of little things that I let her lead. Like I'd say another example is like even with my daughter, there's certain things that she would do and she would help me on. And I have no ego saying, "Oh, I know how to do this. I'm a parent." Like this is my first rodeo. And when she noticed certain things, and I let her lead, like, "Hey, you should do it this way, or you should talk to her this way," because again, I'm not perfect, and from the outside looking in, it's so much better because you can see the whole scope, right? You can see the situation, and you could improve it and make it better and give better suggestions. For me, being inside of it, it's kind of hard to see certain things. So when something happens at home and she's like, "Hey, you should say it like this to her," or you should talk to her this way, or you should do this, it's so much better. That's how I'm able to like parent better, because Lizelle was able to help me, and I let her lead. When it's time for her to lead, or when I'm open ears all the time when she's telling me, "Hey, we should do it this way, or we should do it that way," because
Mm.
again, I'm not perfect. This is my first time being a parent, and those are the things that I'm like, wow, thank God I have her because I would be doing it this way or I would be screwing
Mm.
it up. So it's trial and error, and again, for me, I'm just thankful and grateful that I have her to help me with it.
Oh, thank you, love. And I think that's where, yeah, it's important to to like we said, take turns, but it also, in that sense, like helps us learn new things, helps
Yeah.
us grow. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not to say that like, okay, you're good at that, you just do that, I'll be over here. Like,
Exactly.
even if you come in and like, okay, so teach me, how can I do this,
Right.
what can I do to
Mm-hmm.
learn how to do this, like you said, in terms of like cooking, like it wasn't something that you naturally would pick up on your own. But
Right.
when I was there, when you were last here in person, for me to show you like, oh, this is how you do it, babe, like it's really not that difficult.
Right.
And sometimes we just need that, we need that guide, and
Mm-hmm.
then we can learn from that and we can grow and we can be like,
Right.
okay, so this is how I can do it better, this is how I can do it for myself. Yeah. So yeah, I think it is important to take turns, and then again, it helps you to grow and evolve and to become better at something and to become a better person. And that's always good. Like, I feel like it is very
Mm-hmm.
important through life to never stop growing and getting better at
For
things and
sure.
learning. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Definitely. And in terms of like the parenting thing, like, I haven't had kids, I'm not a parent. So this is
Mm-hmm.
like something that we're going through, that we go through together, even though I am all the way over here. I'm so thankful and grateful that you do allow me
Mm-hmm.
to talk and have like some input into like, hey, maybe you should try doing this, or maybe we should do it
Right.
like this, like, because there's no like set handbook on like
There isn't
how
any.
to parent, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, things that might work for other parents might not work for us or whatever. So yeah, having different perspectives, and not having the ego to be
Mm-hmm.
like, no, like I don't need you, like I know how to do it. Like, I feel like it's important
Right.
to let go of that pride and ego and be like, you know what, you're right, like let's try it this way, or let's do
Mm-hmm.
it like this. Yeah, I feel like is very important. So the last tip that we have, and one that I think is probably one of the most important ones,
Mm-hmm.
and one that has been very beneficial for us and has really worked for us, is to prioritize fun and to never stop dating each other, dating with each other,
Yeah.
never stop dating each
Mm-hmm.
other. Because the way I see it is, yeah, relationships aren't like a, you meet someone, you get to know each other, you fall in love, and that's it, happy ending. Like,
Right.
it's constant work. We've said this many times from
Yeah.
the beginning of this episode, but it's constant work. And I feel like having that mindset of like never stopping dating each other, because okay, I've said this previously, who I am today is not the same as who I was, say, a few years ago. I'm a completely different person. So I've grown and evolved, and so have you. You're a
Mm-hmm.
completely different person as
For
well.
sure.
So I feel like if we fell in love with that first version of each other that we met, and we didn't take the time to continue to grow and get to know each other's new evolved versions as
Right.
they came along,
Mm-hmm.
then that's where you get to that point in the relationship where, I've heard people say this line before, where it's like, you're not the person I fell in love with. And
Right.
it's like, okay, yes, because we've been in this like 7 years deep. Like, of course
I'm
not.
like,
Like, we've grown.
for me, I'm like, I hope I'm not, because if I was that person back then, yeah, it would be horrible. Like, I hope that you're better. You're a different person now.
Yeah, so I think it's very important to never stop dating. And
Yeah.
that doesn't just mean like date nights and stuff. I think that's so important. And it's so
Mm-hmm.
important to take time to go on dates with each other, to do the little things with each other, to, when you first start dating someone and it's like you're so smitten with them, you're like obsessed with them, you want to talk to them all the time, you want to know how they're
Yeah.
feeling, how they're doing, what's up with them. And then you guys get into a relationship, you get comfortable, and it's like
What
you're just
now?
chilling. Yeah.
Right.
But I feel like it's important to still keep that mindset of like wanting to get to know each other,
For
because
sure.
you may think you know someone, but there's always something new to learn. Like, put it this way, you always tell me like I know you like the back of my hand. Yes, you do, but there's like new different routes to drive through and to go through, and different sights to see like throughout time
Right. Mm-hmm.
as a person grows and evolves. So I feel like, yeah, that idea and that mindset of never stop dating each other, that is how you stay in that like honeymoon phase,
Honeymoon,
as they
right?
call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because I've explained this in a previous episode before, is that people naturally think of the honeymoon phase as like, oh, that's just the first like few months of a relationship. Once we know each other, we're chilling. Honeymoon phase is done.
Right.
But a honeymoon phase is something that can happen time and time again in a relationship. I see relationships as like a circle, right? So
Yep.
you've got like your chilling stage, something happens, you argue, resolve, you're okay, and then your honeymoon again, and then it
Mm-hmm.
happens all over again. So it's like a
It's a
constant
cycle.
cycle.
It's a
Yeah.
cycle. Yeah.
The honeymoon phase is like that happy point, that pinnacle
Mm-hmm.
where everything's cool, content, you're chilling, or you're obsessed with each other, or you reach a new level of your relationship or something. Like
Right.
the honeymoon phase doesn't have a specific definition for what it entails and like what it includes. It can have many different meanings, but I feel like it is something that we experience time and time again throughout the lifetime of
Right.
our relationship. Yeah. So that whole
Yeah.
dating mindset is important.
Yeah. You can't. You really can't. Not like you can't not possibly know every single thing about your partner.
Yeah.
That's why I always say I'm never gonna stop like getting to know you.
Mm.
You're gonna be a different person now and 5 years from now. You're gonna
Yeah.
see more. You're gonna experience more. You're gonna learn more.
Mm.
So you need to just stop getting to know. Like you can't not stop getting to know your partner. You have to constantly get to know them, see where you guys are at, see how they're feeling, gauge where you guys are at in a relationship, and see where it's at. Again, you're never gonna know your partner's goals if you don't communicate these things and you don't talk to them,
Yeah.
right?
Mm.
And you have to stop. You got to do things together that makes you happy. You
Mm.
can't just like work, 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 and then end of the day, you guys can't have fun together.
Yeah, and it's like, yeah, I understand that it's important to work and whatnot,
For
obviously
sure.
to provide, to have a
Hmm.
certain lifestyle, to live, of course,
Right.
but it's important to have a balance between the two, between work and play,
For sure.
and the same goes for relationships as well. There has to be a balance between like being able to have it be successful in the sense where you're not just constantly just chilling and you think you know each other and then that's it.
Hmm.
And I know it can become difficult, like when you have kids and things become the routine gets switched up, things become busy, you guys might not have like as much time or whatever.
Right.
But I think it still is important to find those pockets, and because obviously with kids it's a whole different story, right?
Hmm.
So you may only have like a half hour in the day to like
Hmm.
spend time together, and that could even be something as simple as like, I don't know, having like a really good chat, or
Hmm.
watching a movie together,
Right.
or and that could even be something that you include your kids with, like
Hmm.
watching a movie together. But yeah, prioritizing fun in the relationship is very important, because if we're just like so serious all the time, and we're too settled and we're comfortable, and it's like we're not even connecting on that like fun level, it ain't gonna be fun.
Is boring, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
exactly. And you're just coasting along, and then before you know it, because you stopped like dating in that
Hmm.
sense, then it's like, oh, you're not the person I fell in love with. And it's like, yes, because we haven't been checking in with each other. We haven't been putting in the effort to
Right.
continue to get to know each other. Because I think when I say like it's important to continue getting to know each other, when I say that for our relationship, I assume a lot of people would think like, oh yeah, duh, because they're long distance, they don't really know each other.
Hmm.
But you have to understand, like Alan and I have been in a relationship for a few years now, and we still have so much to learn about each other. Even though we know each other inside and out, we know
Hmm.
everything there is to know about each other. There's still like things that we can learn about each other, things that we can learn
Heaps.
from each other.
Hmm.
And that's where like the whole idea of like not stopping dating,
Yep.
that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah. You got, like you said earlier, just that balance of like work and taking care of, you know, all the daily stuff and then having fun. Imagine if you just work and you don't have fun, and you don't enjoy the time and the money that you have and enjoy your family.
Exactly.
There's no balance there. It's boring. It's just you're working for nothing. Life is much more important, and you value more of your experience with the people you have instead of just working all the time. So you have to create memories and have fun.
Yeah, and I think it's always important to go back to, like, life is too short to not be in a relationship where you're so in love with the person, or you have a good dynamic with each other. Like, I feel like, yeah, life's too short to be bored and to settle for something that's like mediocre. Like, and I'm not here being like, oh, everything has to be grand and romantic and exciting all the time, but yeah, life's too short to just settle for something that's like mediocre and you're just living every day like you're not excited, you're not motivated. You know what I mean? So
there's nothing to look forward to. Yeah,
exactly.
It's not a life that I want to live. But good thing, these are the things that all the 9 things that we mentioned is stuff that we really do. We don't just do it. Like I said, it's not like, okay, I'm going to do this in the beginning. These are the things that you constantly just have to do maintenance on. Like, hey, am I still doing this? Am I still doing that? Because again, it's easy to fall into the mundane, and you get jaded. Like you forget, like, oh, I don't really think my partner enough, or I bring up the past all the time and get mad about that, or I don't spend enough time doing fun. I spend this with her, but we don't do anything fun. So you have to have all these balance of those 9 things that we mentioned.
Yeah, for sure. And I also just want to say, it's not like we sat down at the beginning of our relationship and wrote out a contract of like, this is what we need to do, this is what we expect from each other. To be honest, this is stuff that when we sat down to do this video, we're like, yeah, these are the things that have really worked for us, and this is something that we've like subconsciously done within our relationship. And I feel like it definitely has contributed to the strength of our relationship, the quality of it. So yeah, regardless of whether it's long distance or regular, these are, like, I think we're a testament to say that these are things that you can incorporate to help strengthen your relationship, or even add to the strength of your relationship. So that's pretty much it, you guys. That's everything that we have to talk about today. We hope that everything that we spoke about was able to provide some type of clarity or even some type of advice for any of you guys.
Help them, again, for us, we're open book. Like, if you guys could, like, for the people that's watching us on YouTube, if there's other things that works for you guys, just please go put it on our comment. We would like to learn from you guys as well.
Definitely, for sure, because we give advice, but we're not perfect, as we talk about. Like, Alan and I have disagreements, but we're here to share that. And
and we're not relationship gurus and anything.
We ain't.
Like, this is really just stuff that we've experienced, and these are things that work for us. So we love sharing these things because I know that we can relate to so many people, and a lot of people get back to and say, hey, I feel the same way, or I've gone through that, or I'm going through that. And it's fun to connect with everybody and, not feel alone, like you're like the only one going through it. But these are the things that we know that help strengthen our relationship, and we'd love to share with you guys. And again, if you guys have other things that help you guys, by all means, share it with us.
For sure. So with that being said, that concludes today's episode of the One Day Podcast. Thank you for spending part of your day with us. As always, we shall talk to you guys in our next episode.
Thank you. Deuces.
Deuces.